Hey Strongsiders, today we're looking at the hip flexors. In here you can see everything that's pretty much highlighted as a hip flexor. Off to the right, the rectus femoris, along with the muscle that strips over top of it, is also a hip flexor muscle. So what we're going to do is we're going to foam roll these tissues out first. We just want to create a little bit of movement of the fascial tissue. We want to soften it up, or at least just get some awareness in the areas that we're working on. So there I was rolling through like the front of my hip, mostly hitting my rectus femoris. Now I'm a little bit on the lateral side of my hip, which I'm getting into the TFL, and then I'm going to work into the adductor groups. Yes, some of the muscles that pull our legs together also help in lifting our legs. So you want to roll those out, just basically clearing up some space so that when we get into stretching them, we're not as restricted. When we get into stretching, we want to do it in a movement type fashion. So here I'm in a half kneeling adductor stretch. My glute is on really tight, and I'm going to hinge back and forth. As I come up, I'm taking much caution into not arching my lower back. I want to actually keep my hips level this whole time. So as I lean forward, my hip bones stay in line with my collarbones, and I hinge in and out. Make sure that glute turns on so I feel the stretch come out through the front of my hip. We can take a similar approach to hit the front part of our thigh. We're going to get into a half kneeling position. This is basically the bottom of a lunge posture. You want to level out your hips first. You don't want an arch in your lower back, or you want a neutral spine, which will have a small arch, but you don't want to have an excessive arch. Especially as you shift forward and back, you don't want to just release that tension by letting the hips tilt forward. Try to think about keeping your hips, which are a ring, in line with the shoulders, which can also be a ring. They should never be off shape from each other. You can also twist and reach, which will help extend the back a little bit. This helps pull onto your psoas muscle, which actually attaches onto your lumbar spine. Here I'm going to hinge back and forth just like I was doing with the adductor one. Again, you want to make sure you're properly hinging at the hip, where that femur is moving inside of a stable hip and you're not just arching the back. I find moving in and out of these positions better as opposed to just holding a static stretch, because I'll be able to transfer that into movement better later. Let's just get into some exercises now. We're going to do straight leg raises with the toe pointing directly at the ceiling. Again, I got my hands on my hip bones, making sure I don't feel like I'm moving my spine or my hips around. I just want to move my leg. You can then turn the foot out, which will now work the adductor muscles a little bit more, since we're now putting the emphasis into that direction. You can also turn it in, which is going to now focus a little bit more on that TFL, which is more on the lateral aspect of your hip. The last muscle to hit in this position is the sartorius. We call this the hacky sack muscle, because as you lift it up, you can imagine trying to like hit a hacky sack with the inside of your heel. So as I'm lifting the leg up, my left foot ends up over top of my right knee. The leg is basically externally rotating while it's flexing. Moving on, we can get into mountain climbers, but we want to do them slow and controlled, making sure that we don't change the shape of our back. Again, this is just taking your leg and moving inside of a stable hip. I like this one because it's basically a plank while you're moving your leg. More advanced movement would be starting in a split stance and then driving your knee up and forward. This is what the hip flexors do, and then dropping back into position. I have my hand on my lower back and stomach to make sure I'm keeping my spine still while I'm extending my leg here, and especially I'm not rounding my back as I drive my knee up, working on my full range of motion. Another harder exercise to the mountain climber is to attach a band to your foot and pull in. This will add some resistance. I don't suggest doing this until you are stable the entire time. As always, stay strong, Strongsiders. See you next time.